Hello, hello, and welcome to AI in Australia. This is episode 7. Wonderful to see you as always, Shaun. Hope it's been a good week.
Morning, Tim. Yes, absolutely. As we keep saying, there's never a quiet week in the AI world. So another week of intense knowledge graph and semantic modeling training for some clients here in Australia. So for people who've been AI readiness, there's definitely a lot of activity in organizations who are ramping up their readiness in terms of capabilities and everything from knowledge graphs, prompt engineering, the training topics that we're covering in AI in Australia. So absolutely, very exciting times.
Very exciting times, and I think, as we've said often, knowledge is absolutely key here. And please do visit our website. We're trying to publish more and more useful content for you. If you get onto our AI in Australia website and have a look at the resources tab, you'll see we're developing some customizable prompts. All of our podcasts are there, and soon we're going to be releasing some how-to guides and other bits of knowledge as well, because really staying ahead of the curve now is so incredibly important. As always, it's been a fantastically busy week in the world of AI, so we're going to do a quick roundup on the news. I know there's some really big sports events on the calendar at the moment as well, which is very close to Shaun's heart. And then the meat of the conversation today, we're going to be taking you through the 3 Horizons model, which is a bull sharp model, which was popularized by McKinsey's, and talk you through how to use the 3 Horizons model as a way to think about AI and your adoption of AI.
So I'm going to switch gears now, Tim, because I'm going to put my cycling hat on because this is Tour de France month. So for those who are big into cycling and cycling data, this is, as Tim mentioned, this is my absolute passion. Having rode the Tour de France stages, that for those who watched it here in Australia last night, the Hortocamp in the Pyrenees, this had is the race that's called the Hoot Route, where you actually ride 1 week of the Tour de France in the Pyrenees. I've done that 3 times now. So this year, unfortunately, I haven't done it because of work, but next year I'm back on it. So there's been a lot of coaches in around the world, particularly in the Tour de France, who are asking me directly about how can they use AI in their coaching to help with athletes recover, as well as help to improve their performance. So this is really exciting in terms of, corporates have been leading the way in terms of adopting AI, but now there's been a lot of sort of like, hey, how do we get the competitive edge? And you look at, for those who are cyclists, so you don't have to be an elite cyclist. I'm definitely not, but I'm a hugely motivational. I like to keep myself super fit and challenged all the time. And I use things like the Aura Ring and the Whoop, and Tim and I will be talking about some of these data as we get into the pod in a few weeks. But a lot of athletes, as for those who watch it, are using the Whoop band as well as cycling. The Tour de France is all about data. On Netflix, there's a series called Unchained, and last year they talked about in the series that the teams like Jumbo Visma and Tadej Pogačar, the top teams, they said that all about the data. And then they got the teams who are sort of the passionate, the French teams who are like, we're about passion and emotion, and they're not using the data. And there's a big divide in terms of those who are winning, which are data driven, versus those who are not driven, but hey, we want to do it. And now it's going to be like the AI driven organizations, because of like all these athletes are just tagged with data in terms of wearables and power meters. But the key to make decisions with that data is to join the data together through AI. And that's where, like, with knowledge graphs, and that's where a lot of the coaches now who understand the need for that, because they're collecting all this data, but without making decisions on it, that data is just wasted. So it's been really interesting to understand how coaches want to use that for recovery. So asking prompts, hey, what's the looking at heart rate variability and the stages ahead in terms of every day you're hitting altitude and also you're sleeping less. So AI can make really fast decisions on the data that you have about the athlete you recorded, about how can I optimize my recovery, what is the best strategy based upon this data for the stage ahead for certain races, and then you can start using that data to have personalized insights about your cycling athlete. So for all those cyclists out there, we'll do a special when we get towards the end of the Tour de France. I'll start showing some numbers and some techniques that I've been helping with some of the, not the exact Tour de France coaches, because that's all proprietary and confidential, but data that I've been using in my races in the past, but very similar to it, using AI. For those, I know that a lot of you out there in cycling who are very keen to understand how AI in sport works. So, yeah, there's a bit of roundup on the Tour de France, since, yeah, as I said, the next 2 weeks are going to be super exciting. We're hitting the mountains in the Pyrenees, and then there's the Alps. So expect to see some numbers go off the charts, and the coaches is working out what those numbers mean to help them get to the podium when we come to Paris. Tim,
Really,
are you a cyclist? I know you and I are big runners, but how's your numbers going with your training, and have you touched into the cycling endurance sport in your athlete career?
I have. I wouldn't call it a career, but in my, I have dabbled in multi-stage riding. Back in South Africa, I did a couple of 3-day and 4-day events, and I actually held a record. And I'll tell you what my record was. I entered into something called the Bergen Bush, which was a 3-day descent down the escarpment. And when I finished day 1 of the Bergen Bush, after 9 hours of riding, I was the record holder for the longest day ever on the first day of the.
Wow, 9 hours.
It was pretty bad. But coming down the escarpment in my defense, it was so muddy that I had to push my bike for 3 hours. Wheels wouldn't turn. And not only did I hold the record for the longest day, but I wasn't last. There were people behind me, so I only held it for a couple of minutes, and then somebody came in behind me and they held it at the record. But in all seriousness, really enjoy all endurance sports. And it's, if I think back to those days, I didn't even have a watch that could last long enough to keep my biometric record for that sort of 10-hour. And now you've got incredible wearables that can track all of these different bits of data. And I think this personalization, as you're talking, the convergence between teams that are running both passion and metrics, they're the ones who are going to win. The guys who've got the kind of two together. It's the same in business. You need to have the passion, the vision, the drive, and you need to have the discipline and the refinement that comes with the, initially the big and then smaller and smaller incremental gains on top of understanding what numbers drive what from a performance perspective. So really excited to get into some of that with you, Shaun. And we've spoken a lot about heart rate variability and other stress indicators for optimal human performance. Something we're going to tap into in coming episodes.
Exactly. And I was also to touch on these wearables, like for those who've used Whoop and Aura as like sort of the big main two wearables that's to keep on pushing the market. So both of them have AI advisors underneath it. So and this is where I want to teach you people, teach each of you out there in terms of that these AI advisors are super generic. So while they're working off your data, it's they're more like how do I improve my sleep? So and these are the scraping the web. I think Whoop is using ChatGPT on the back end. I'm not sure Aura uses. So, but what you really want is actually ask, hence like we prompt, is personalized insights that relate to your data and to your context, rather than while it's useful in terms of yes, these prompts or the AI responses to your data, and it's only been quite new in the last probably 6 months. Is helpful, but what we want to try and get you to do is that how do you get the some of you saw my post this week about athlete intelligence. We want you to have that AI to use not this AI in artificial intelligence, but to athlete intelligence. So Tim and I will do a special down the road pretty soon on how you can use AI to increase your athlete intelligence, since a lot of you out there, as I said, have the human ambition, not just using data for your corporate or your field work. But with that, let's switch to roundup. Tim, what's been happening on the waves of the corporate waves on the AI and news? I'll kick it over to you.
I think the big news. Maybe let's start with some news that's like less big but more interesting, and that's I think just this. There's been an increasing shift in focus towards looking to medical discoveries, and I think this is something we've spoken about before. It's all wonderful that this generative AI large language model landscape is leading this big transformation that we've seen, and search is dying and prompting is coming, and there's been this incredible land grab between the labs. But I think what a lot of us are waiting for is where are the big machine learning and AI breakthroughs that are coming out of the sort of fundamental sciences, and particularly the medical sciences.
Mm.
And an article that I've been following, and I suppose it harkens back a little bit to what you're talking about now, has been one around these businesses that are running protein modeling and protein simulations to try to come up with novel drug discoveries. And I think there are a number of these. We will start talking about these more and more, but there's two. One is a company called Recursion, and the other is in silico. And really what they're trying to do is put these AI designed molecules into trials so that we can start to get clinical testing data back and we can start to have really big breakthroughs. I've been saying for a while, I think the thing that's going to really excite me in AI is the GPT moment for medical trials, where we start to see like businesses that are making material breakthroughs in curing diseases. And I think that there's a groundswell waiting to happen. I think it hasn't happened yet, but this is really sort of a space that I want us to continue to follow. And if we go back to what we've been speaking about with this being the start of the age of abundance, part of that abundance needs to be health abundance. It needs these AI models need to be driving better health outcomes, the curing of diseases. So we will keep an eye on that. But that's sort of a bubbling that's happening underneath. But really, the big news story I think for the week has been Meta. It seems Mark Zuckerberg. We spoke about his $100 million offers. Lots of media headlines saying Mark is going shopping. Must be nice to go shopping when you've got a credit card like Mark.
Okay, exactly.
But I've now heard that some of these pay packages are in the order of $200 million, which is just, I mean, these guys are like in their 20s. And, they're just kind of saying, where do I sign? There's absolutely no loyalty when you're talking about those sorts of numbers. But so this talent war is really gearing up, and Mark Zuckerberg seems to be serious about the race, and he's building this team that he's calling the superintelligence team. But what I found really fascinating about this is two data centers that they're building. So the first is called Prometheus, and the second is what was the second? The first was Prometheus, which was like a 1 gigawatt data center. And the second was Hyperion, named after the asteroid. And the Hyperion is a 5 gigawatt data center. Now, these are going to drive Meta's superintelligence labs. And just to think about this in some scaling, a 1 gigawatt lab, a data center, would power in the order of 1 million homes. So if you think about the amount of power, so I quickly Googled to see how big is a 5 gigawatt data center. How many 5 gigawatt power plants are there around the world? And in China, there are only three. There are two coal-powered ones, and this is an enormous amount of power that's going in to drive Hyperion and Prometheus. And the amount of spend that's flowing out of Meta is in the order, I read the number, $160 billion US.
160 billion.
160 billion US dollars. So these guys are betting everything on compute. They're basically saying that the best models, this is it almost feels like a brute force problem. They're saying we are going to throw all the money at getting all the talent, building these massive data centers, and we are going to build better models. And I think that, last week we spoke about Grok 4 and the fact that Grok 4 has kind of leapfrogged to some extent. It's now producing incredible results. It seems that the idea is simply that you've got to brute force your way towards superintelligence, and that's just going to be worth it. I don't know that there's any idea of how it's going to be worth it, other than these superintelligences are just going to gobble up all the money in the world and distribute them to places like Zuckerberg and Meta and OpenAI. But yeah, that was this news story that caught my eye. What about you, Shaun? Anything?
I was more coming off the back on the articles about job losses. So there's continued to be obviously a lot more articles all the time about big organizations slashing the workforce, and the constant theme about AI is going to replace jobs and what does it mean for companies. So there's been just to sort of summarize the themes there across the news sectors. So I think we want to sort of dispel a lot of this scared, like people reacting to this news go, oh my God, is my job going to be lost? Think about it in terms of like objectively, and this is where hence again back to this is why Tim and I have our training to help people like transition towards this new era of AI, because AI isn't going to go away, and everybody to sit there and read the news with getting more and more stressed isn't going to do anything if you're going to sit there and do nothing. What you need to do, like anything else with a trend, and this is obviously a massive trend that is going to become the new normal for a lot of organizations, is that you've got to transition your skills so that there's a couple of areas of you either work with AI, so it's actually looking at the workforce in terms of you're going to, not every organization, most organizations down the track, you're going to have AI next to you. And then, I don't mean a robot, but there's going to be AI capabilities all around you. So the first position is to how to work with AI, whether it be chatbots, prompts, graph, like a lot of the things we've been talking about and have a training on. So that's one of the things that to make yourself attractive and to also not to be, how do I get replaced by AI? These are one of the things that a lot of the articles have been saying. And then to flip onto the ones where those whose jobs are going to be replaced, think of it as another way of automation. So AI is not going to replace your jobs. At the end of the day, if there's business processes in an organization that are repetitive and inefficient, before AI, they would be replaced by automation. So, and that's been around for a long, long time. So this is nothing new. So if your job is something highly mundane, highly repetitive and automatic, then don't sit there and be until you get this slip and saying how you're fired or replaced. Look at how you can be reskilled. And that's where hence that be proactive about this, that eventually no job is safe, but think of it as getting that either reskilled, transition to working with AI. And then the big one is then the third part is that those companies, and Tim's going to touch on this soon in our feature of the horizons, is those organizations who are trying to be innovative and use AI to their advantage. They're looking for people to how to enable that innovation leap. And that's where you're looking to use AI in terms of learning new skills, again, back to our training, to help provide that competitive edge to organizations. And that's where a lot of the articles are saying that those people who are, take that proactiveness to actually upskill and take the sort of look at the opportunities, not the sort of be reactive, to upskill sort of the new, like the training I've been doing for so one of these organizations here in Australia, about putting hundreds of people through knowledge graph training semantics, which is like leading in the entire Australia, because that's going to give them the biggest competitive edge to work with AI, with knowledge graphs, building machine readable data, prompts, all the type of areas. So it's quite interesting looking at sort of dissecting what you talked about last week, Tim, about the news being doom and gloom for AI is going to take everything. Well, not really. It's in terms of look at it in terms of there's a lot you can do right now in terms of education, skill, training, readiness, all those type of areas. So you don't have to wait to the last minute and go, oh, my job's been replaced. But so yeah, what's your take on that, Tim? Like I said, without training on that space, but with your experience in this, how do you see the sort of the areas of how people from a psychology and also reacting to the news about AI replacing jobs versus having a proactive nature of enabling opportunities?
The word you use there, psychology, is so important. And as you were talking, I was just thinking about how all of these studies that have been done around like loss aversion. So I don't know if you ever followed that. It was an experiment. I can't remember if it was Malcolm Gladwell or maybe someone, Nassim Taleb, I can't remember. But they spoke about how people, when they were putting for par or putting for birdie, when they felt that they might lose the birdie versus get the par, how much worse they performed. It was like all around, like we're terribly programmed to be loss averse.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want to use things that are taken away, but it's a terrible way of thinking because it kind of engages the limbic system of the brain, the reptilian brain. That's not the really big part of our brain, the neocortex that's evolved to make us incredible. Reptilian brain, the flight, fight, fear responses. And these are cognitive depressing centers. They're the centers that actually make your thinking centers go away.
Yeah.
Now, the flip of that, the flip side of that psychology is to have an abundance mindset, which is actually what you're talking about. And the abundance mindset is when you say, I'm not scared of what AI is going to do, but what could my organization with these talented, I've got 100 talented people in my business. What could 100 superhumans achieve? Those 100 people plus AI. Not those 100 people replaced by AI. Let's go away from the fear. Let's think about the abundance side.
Yeah.
And I think that is the unlocking mentality, the abundance mentality, to say, how do I augment myself and my
Exactly.
business, my workforce, and become super efficient? I remember Bill Gates talking about how the difference between like a good programmer and a super good programmer was 10,000 times. I remember, like,
Yeah.
and this was probably like 15, 20 years ago, he spoke about it, thinking like, that sounds like hyperbole. Like, how can it be 10,000 times? But it is. Like, an average Joe doing his job every day. Now, just think about the worker. You're talking about automation of processes. The average worker who sits down and says, okay, got this mountain of work today, and I'm going to do exactly the same mountain
Yeah.
of work today as I did yesterday, and it's going to take me all of my 8 hours, and I'm just not going to get through it. That's the kind of 1x worker.
Mm.
Then you get the 10,000x worker who arrives and says, there's just no way I'm going to do this again. Today, I'm going to sit and automate that workflow.
Yeah.
And I'm going to build something that does the whole thing in 2 minutes. And then then those two paths diverge, right? That the second worker builds the thing that automates it, whatever it was, this is pre-AI.
Yeah.
And it automates his inbox or his Excel stuff that he's doing. And it takes 2 minutes. Every single day, worker one comes into the office, takes 8 hours. Worker B comes in, takes 2 minutes. And
Yeah.
worker B comes in and automates the next line of work, the next line. And you can see how those two stories diverge to be a 10,000 times more effective worker in the second scenario. That's the kind of Bill Gates model that he was talking about when he was speaking about coding efficiency. But now we've all got that opportunity. We can all use these AI tools.
Exactly. Yep.
That second kind of worker. And what would that mean for an organization that truly embraces it? It would mean exponential competitive advantage. And I think that's what's exciting.
Yeah.
I think you hit on it with the word psychology.
Exactly. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant way of framing that in terms of like almost saying that like this is a reset. I've used this before to a lot of organizations that right now that everybody has been exposed to AI at the same time. So like ChatGPT and Gemini, they're like crazy expensive. So everybody has opportunity to learn about them, use them, and try them. And all that you can sit back there and going, I'm too scared. AI is this is all too overwhelming for me and do nothing. But it's these trends, whether it be cloud before then, going digital. People have a choice, and that's where the more that you sit back there, rather than just going into robotic mode and say, I'm just going to do my job the same way, versus how can I do this better? And then we call that innovation, or if an organization just does a reorg. End of the day, things are going to change, and that's where this is just another change management opportunity.
That's right.
But AI has been so massive in terms of the benefits and hence the capabilities that you can do with AI is huge. So if you can show to an organization that you can, and as you triggered one of the articles to you, I was reading about the AI augmentation, and that's where if you can frame yourself as being the AI augmenters for your organization, you're going to be, rather than thinking about how do I keep my job, you'd be flipping yourself in terms of how can I show myself as being one of the AI leaders, and that's as simple as learning, training, experimenting, and by doing those, then you're ahead of most people who are sitting back there going, I'm overwhelmed, or this is too scary. So this is a massive opportunity for people when everybody's at the same opportunity of learning and training, coming down to psychology, invest the time, learn new skills, bite-sized pieces of test, learn, and apply, and eventually you'll be on the upper end of the curve of people like the early adopters they'll be asking you, how do I do this? Rather than people at the end going, is my job safe or will I lose it? And then when they get reorged or changed, they go, oh, AI is so bad because it's stolen my job. And it's not that at all. It's just that everything's moving like any industry, and you've got to embrace that change in terms of how can you benefit by investment in learning and training. And that's, again, back to our training. The reason why part of Tim and I are doing this is that if you don't train, there's no other way you're going to apply AI. It's not going to just pin into your workbox and going, here's how to. There's so many different complexities of the language of AI, the steps of using different AI roadmaps, and the shift between pre-AI and current AI, the shifts are massive. So everybody from the executive level down to the people who are brand new, you need to do your training, and it's not a cost, it's an investment. So that's a big thing in terms of hence with psychology. Don't go to that flight and fight. Go back to that abundance. I like that word abundance thing because there's so many abundance of opportunities out there. look at how much Meta and these guys are spending, and all the way downwards, there's so much investment going into AI. If you make yourself attractive, there's so many jobs that you can take versus looking at the job losses that are so small in comparison to the opportunities. So flick your mindset to the abundance rather than sort of being scared by the media about job losses that are pretty small in comparison.
Completely agree with you. And just to like frame it the way I'm seeing at the moment, I would say two things. The one is that there's never been a time when you can augment yourself more. So where the average person or just anybody can just become supercharged. You've got this like brain augmenter available to you for $20 a month or whatever it is. That's the first thing. And the second thing we touched on last week, what is everybody doing? Everyone's becoming lazy. So just think about what opportunity that creates. You've got tools that mean you can be better than everybody else, and everyone's getting lazy. So all you have to do is not be lazy, and the way you need to not be lazy is to empower yourself with knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we're going to dial into a quick little masterclass. What I wanted to do today is just talk about this 3 horizons model as a way of thinking about organizational change as it applies to this kind of coming wave. So there was this guy, Bill Sharp, and he spoke about 3 different business horizons. And the model really, what it attempted to do is say, how do I balance? I've got a business. Let's call it my legacy business or my core business. And the truth of any business is it will eventually go extinct. Okay, so that is my Horizon 1 business. It currently makes me the bulk of my money, but it's not going to, unless it evolves, market forces and competition are going to come along, and it's going to tail off, right? So I need to find ways of thinking in the distant future, which is my 3rd horizon, while maintaining my 1st horizon. And then I have like kind of a middle horizon, which is the one that's going to foster my growth towards getting to kind of the 3rd horizon. So it's a way of thinking on 3 different time scales. And on these 3 different time scales, you've got different focuses, and you've got different ways of kind of thinking about investment and thinking about where you allocate your resources. Now, it becomes a long conversation that we would get into at another stage about how do you operationalize this, because there are some real risks. And the one risk that you find is that businesses find themselves in Horizon 1, because that's where they are, with aspirations to be in Horizon 3. But all of their investment, metrics, focus, and let's just call it centers of gravity and inertia are around Horizon 1. And then they sit back and they wonder why, although they set up a framework that was going to get them to Horizon 3, they never actually got them there. And that's because you actually have to have different ways of investing and measuring and driving actions, and potentially even have different teams applied to these different horizons. So you don't find that you're going to get this regression to the mean based on the kind of the way of doing things. The kind of people who run Horizon 1 businesses, big mature businesses, are corporate managers. They are people who are very good at not taking risks, and they're very good at preserving Horizon 1. But you can't make them the people who are going to get you into Horizon 3. So we will then think about what is a bit of a messy slide, but what do these 3 horizons look like if we think about it in the context of AI? So really, Horizon 1 would be us saying, in the business as usual, how do we take low risk, maybe like high return AI pilots? It's building in chatbots, repetitive robotic process automation, predictive maintenance, all these sorts of things. And it's the core business. It's about efficiency. It's about risk mitigation. It's about return on investment. And really what you're doing in Horizon 1 is you're saying, how do I maximize the time and revenue yield that I have in my core business? Okay, so it's like, it's going to go over time, it's going to decline and decline, but how do I keep that safe? Horizon 2 is going to be about building innovation and scaling and looking at competitive advantage. And then your Horizon 3 is really your disruptive stuff. That's like when we spoke about the 5 different levels of AI readiness of organizations. That's your AI native business. Now, businesses very, very seldom transform from a Horizon 1 to Horizon 3. It's not like really, it's much more, you need to build these 3 different things in parallel. Imagine the idea of a big legacy bank that's running COBOL systems and mainframe systems, and it's got all their different data sources and things like that. Is it realistic to think that that business will transform itself into an AI agentic native business? Like I think that we all know it isn't. It's never going to happen.
It
Never
isn't.
going to get.
No.
This is not the next digital transformation. You're not going to replace it brick by brick and get there.
Exactly.
You have to have 3 different horizons. And the third horizon would almost be a Skype's workplace where you're building alongside. We spoke about the great reformation rather than the big great transformation. And this is the horizon 3 would be the reformation, would be where you would build these agentic systems alongside the existing horizon 1 business. There you would have totally different business models, revenue models. You have a different, you might have data monetization, assets, all sorts of things that you're not thinking in your kind of legacy business. So just a couple of warnings around this. I did speak about a little bit. The big problem is that businesses will recognize that Horizon 3 is their future. And Horizon 3 is going to be, if you think about a future value model, over the long term, Horizon 1 is dying and Horizon 3 is growing. But right now, Horizon 3 might be pre-revenue, but not, it might be a concept inside an organization. They understand that they want to work into, become an ecosystem player, or they want to monetize under-monetized assets that they have now. How do you think about your investment strategy? And what tends to happen is that because the center, all of the revenue, 99% of the revenue sits in Horizon 1, you have this, what we spoke about just now, this over-indexing on all of the metrics that govern Horizon 1, which are non-compatible with Horizon 3. So that means that you end up having a lot of talk about these future business models, but you don't actually make the commitments to separating and giving real authority to these future business models. The thought experiment to play out is to say, well, if in 20 years' time, I look back on this business and Horizon 3 was 99, Horizon 3 was my new Horizon 1, and it was 99% of my current business model's revenue, my total business's revenue in 20 years' time, how much authority would I give to Horizon 3? And it would then be very obvious. You'd give it the amount of authority that you give your current Horizon 1 business, but you don't. And what ends up happening is that businesses get stuck in that kind of Horizon 1, and they never really create the future-focused investment in those second and third horizons that need to happen. So,
of anything too, like just quickly jump in there too, because that's a really important point that I've seen in many of these big clients that that's the Horizon 1 organizations get so stuck in their sort of safe zone, and then those organizations, their competitors who move into 2 and 3, then that void becomes so big, then Horizon 1 panics and go, oh, we need this to go, how do we leapfrog to the Horizon 3 in panic mode?
yes.
But the fact that they haven't invested in the transition in Horizon 2, and they think that we just need to get companies to do the reorg and just do a quick fix, and then cut all the corners, make a lot of mistakes to try to get the so-called superficial Horizon 3. And all it is like a bunch of pilots and experiments, panic, lack of change management, and everything that go backwards.
That's
So
right.
I think that's a really important point that you made there, Tim, in terms of is that the continual investment to actually not be stuck in Horizon 1 and to prepare 2 and 3, because that transition is so often overlooked by organizations, rather than just go for the panic or how do we get there the fastest, without actually understanding what is needed.
And I think you, if you are sitting in an enterprise right now looking at this, the way that you think about the investment from Horizon 1 is so important. It's not just financial. It's we have spoken, and Shaun, you are such a great advocate of data readiness. Like, your investment in your data strategy is part of the future investment in your Horizon 3 business, because you simply can't enable it if you don't have the data ready. So one of the obligations, and another way to think about this, which I quite like, is to think about like your young self committing to the health of your future self. All of the actions, the responsible decisions that the young man takes in anticipation of living a healthy old age, they're so multifaceted and they occur across so many different dimensions. But when you're the young man, you just think about extracting as much value as you can in your youth. You almost neglect your future self, and that
exactly, yeah,
in the form of short-term gains or pleasures at the expense of your future self.
Long-term longevity, yeah.
we need to have the discipline in our organizations in our first horizon to say, how much money am I putting aside to invest in things that are outside of the businesses I know today in anticipation of growth for the future? That's just a money investment. And what about the activities, the ongoing cardiovascular work that I have to do, the 10-kilometer run every single day, just to build up my cardiovascular fitness so that I age well? That's your data readiness. That's like replatforming. It's the grind. It's boring. Every single day you have to do it.
That equality, exactly. It's exactly. Building capacity so that as more data comes in, you can use the same thing as you want to do more and more as you get older, like marathons, and you get injuries. Then injuries, you can't do anything, so you do nothing at all. The same thing, if you don't build capacity, all this data is coming in, then you can't do anything at all, let alone AI. You can't even just do processing. So it's a really good analogy, especially when I said, like, I look at my sport versus corporate in terms of both looking at the data approach. It's almost exactly the same in terms of building capacity, building innovation, leveraging the things that you've got to do, the foundations, both in business and in our lives. And that's where the foundations is basically going from transition 1 to transition 2. That going from 1 to 3, without the foundations, you're basically going to have nothing. That the big I like about Horizon 2 is that the big two things we're going to value is integration and scale. And you can only build those if you actually build those foundations, make the transition away from like what has served you in the past to what you need to get to in the future. And that's where investing in people, investing in new technology, investing in the data, which is the Horizon 2. And then you can start then the things like the agentic AI and like the knowledge graphs and the new AI capabilities. They leverage from Horizon 2. They can't pick from Horizon 1 because there's like incompatible technology, incompatible skills, as well as the cost that you haven't outlaid in Horizon 1 are so big that Horizon 3 isn't doing it for free.
And it's like many businesses have periods of exponential growth, and those periods of exponential growth often appear to the outsider like they just suddenly happened. The business had an overnight success. What's missing from that picture is always how much preparation work is done in well-disciplined businesses so that when a moment comes along that can be exploited, they are ready to exploit it. And back to our analogy about being fit, it's like you have to have done the work so that when the race comes along, you can outperform everybody else in the race. But there aren't races all the time. And there are these special moments that happen where there's something happens from the demand side in the consumer and technology, and the surrounding technology evolves, and suddenly there's a moment, and there's a moment to exploit a step change. And whether you're a business, whether it's your Kodak, whether you're Kodak and you're going digital or not going to go digital, or whether you are, whatever the case might be, the point is that you need to be ready to exploit it. And this is one of those moments where we can see the tooling's getting better. We can see that there are going to be all of these moments to exploit. But the truth is, no, there haven't been a lot of like big runaway successes yet, except in the businesses that are building products to help people build with AI. But those moments will come, and they will be capitalized on by the businesses that are the fittest, the businesses that are most exploit the moment.
And it's those ones who are actually doing the work now in terms of hands where we talked about, who are doing the training, who are making the transition, investing in, like I said, the augmentation and the transition to work with AI. And those who go, I'll wait for the technology to be ready, and it's going to be too late. So like the time is now, as I said, because there's so much going on and there's so much to learn, that the more you start now, the more that you can leverage in the Horizon 3 and be the early adopters.
I had someone send me this quote the other day by Warren Buffett. It says, at too many companies, the boss shoots the arrow of managerial performance and then hastily paints the bullseye around the spot where it lands. And it's kind of like Warren Buffett's like view on just how many people are, I suppose, scared of innovation. Like, I mean, the alternative is to say that like you build the corporate discipline around being able to exploit opportunity in H2 and H3. And then you need to be okay to like rapidly try different things and
take risks.
Some work, some fail.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you are only ever going to be a Horizon 1 business, and eventually the Horizon 2s and 3s will come and eat your lunch, and that will kind of be the end of you. So we hope that that's a useful framing just to think a little bit about, because I think so much of this is org change. We've spoken about before, but like, how do I think about the change? How do I operationalize the change? And then how do I capacitate myself and my teams up for this particular domain of new knowledge that's coming along, and obviously we want to help with that in our masterclasses.
Exactly. No, it's been awesome. And again, each podcast, we're just giving you small nuggets of learnings that you can, or bite-sized pieces, because obviously a lot of people are overwhelmed with the big changes that people hear or frightened by news. But I think that we're every podcast we're providing that readiness for you. So we hope that today is another nugget of readiness that you can digest and apply for. And the future episodes, we'll take some frequently asked questions where we'll run through about, as Tim mentioned, the how-to guides. But right now, just arming you with some of that new information, new skills, new training that is not always available out there, or some consultant will charge you for it. Use this as a sponge, suck everything out of us, because these are the things that are going to get you ahead of the curve. And we want people like you to be leaders, and let those people on the couch who just want to be the laggers to do what they like. But we're all about being the AI fit athletes as we embark on a tough weekend of the Tour de France. So I'll finish off with the cycling as I started. So as in the AI world, take this nugget to be fit, because on the weekend, the cyclists, when you look at the stages, need to be super fit. When you look at the altitude that these guys are claiming, and they've been training all year round. So they've been going through Horizon 1, Horizon 2, and now in the Horizon 3 for the leaders who are actually going to win the Tour de France. So follow as sport do your training, invest in the preparation, and they're the ones who will be on the podium in the AI world. So with that, have an excellent weekend, everybody. Tim, enjoy the weekend. If you're out on the road track, getting fit, and everything else, I'm looking forward to seeing the data next week, and we can talk about week 3 of the Tour de France. So we'll talk a bit more cycling and data.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Shaun, and we'll catch you all again next week. Keep well.
Sounds great. Everybody.
Bye.